Hey everybody, and welcome to the Friday wrap-up on Streamlined Solopreneur, a short episode where I talk about three things: what's on my mind this week, recommended reading, and recommended media. This is the show that helps you automate your business so you can take time off worry-free, and hopefully this curation will help you think more about your systems. I'm your host, Joe Casabona, and here's what's on my mind for June 19th, 2026. Okay, so number one, I'm doing a lot of speaking this year. I updated my /now page. That's over at casabona.org/now. And I decided to add all of my speaking appearances. It is my heaviest speaking year since before the pandemic, when I was fully in the WordPress space and speaking at half a dozen WordPress specific events per year, plus meetups and other events that I was speaking at. Each talk takes me a significant amount of time to craft, rehearse, and deliver in an impactful way. And while I do try to give the same talk multiple times, I always practice it 3 to 5 times before giving it, and I will also often update the talks based on feedback as well. So I will update analogies to make them land a little better. I'll change examples based on what I had been working on in between those talks. I will tighten up descriptions and things like that. There was actually somebody in the WordPress space at a WordPress conference I spoke at over 10 years ago now, but I had given the same talk about 3 times that I was about to give at this conference, and he got on my case about it, telling me that it's wrong that I'm giving the same talk multiple times, as he was working on his slides. So I said, hey, my talk is done, and I know it's going to be good because I've given it before. You are working on your slides right now, and you don't know what it's going to sound like until you get on stage. So one of us cares about the craft. But that's really not the point, right? Yes, you should absolutely rehearse your talks, and I rehearse my talks a bunch. But this actually got me thinking about 3 questions, because now I'm giving 5, 6 talks, something like that, in the next few months, and they're going to take a significant amount of time. So here are the 3 questions I'm thinking about. Why do I speak? Is it a waste of time? And whether it is or isn't, how will I make it worth my time? For professional speakers, authors, and other specific professions, the 3 questions are obvious, right? Professional speakers get paid to speak. It's their whole thing. Authors are going on book tours and speaking in order to sell books or get more of their books in the hands of more people. But what about events where you're paying for travel and lodging, where you might not be getting paid? I have been a paid speaker before. Most of the time, I am not a paid speaker. So why am I doing it then, and how can I make it worth my time? The truth is, I really like teaching, and speaking gives me the ability to do that. I was a drama club kid, and I've always thrived on being on stage in front of people. It was my favorite part of my time as the parent-teacher organization president at my kid's school too. I just loved giving talks and networking with meeting people. I'm not really networking at my kid's school, I guess, but building those relationships. But publicly speaking is one of my favorite things to do. But there is still a tangible cost in both time and actual money when I go to a conference that I'm not being compensated for. So the reason I'm doing this needs to be more than just for the love of the game. And for me, it's really about exposure and business development. I do my best selling in person when people meet me and see that I'm a genuinely helpful guy. And I will say that this is based on feedback I've gotten, not me foisting platitudes upon myself. I had a discovery call with someone earlier this week where they said they felt like they know me. Another person said they feel like they can ask a question without thinking I'm going to make them feel stupid. And that's like the whole thing I'm trying to go for, right? Like, that is me. You get me. And it's hard for me to communicate that with website copy or sales copy because I don't do the things that you're supposed to do to write compelling sales copy. So when I speak, it gives me a better opportunity to get in front of and help more of the people I want to help, while also growing my business. So in that regard, I do not feel like it's a waste of time. But it doesn't mean that it's de facto worth my time. In order for it to be worth my time, I need to have a clear plan to get clients or at least build relationships from those talks. When I was speaking in the WordPress space, it was a pretty clear path. You are not allowed to sell from the stage at WordCamps. These are community events. But I would always have a QR code for people to join my mailing list. Or I would casually mention my book and people would want to buy the book. So as I do more of these in-person events, this is what I'm working on over the next week. Especially since in-person events are different from virtual events, where usually some lead magnet or link is super easy to take action on. I spoke at my friend Alex Sanfilippo's Podcasting Made Simple live event a couple years ago, or maybe it was a year ago. And 70 people signed up for my mailing list from that talk. So that's really easy. What am I going to do as I give more of these talks, both virtually and in person, but mostly in person, to start more conversations and get in front of or get connected with more people who I can help? And I want to give a shout out to my friend Austin Church here, because I was having like a crisis of conscience earlier this week, and he basically told me that, I have a strong conviction, but I really need to feel it stronger, if that makes sense. So he gave me a really good pep talk. Big fan of Austin Church. My question for you is, do you speak at conferences? When is it worth it for you? You can let me know over at streamlinedfeedback.com. So that's what's on my mind for this week. Let's move on to recommended reading. The story I am sharing this week: Mark Zuckerberg orders his employees to start having fun again after brutal layoffs culled their colleagues. In a turn of events that will shock no one, the guy who apparently had to hire a PR firm to make himself seem less like a robot is failing to read the room at his own company. My favorite quote from this article is, Zuckerberg offered employees access to permanent desks, a symbolic gesture that unintentionally illustrated how expendable many of them had become. Many employees at Meta have been working from hot desks, a controversial scheme involving multiple workers sharing the same desk. What an incredible benefit this is, knowing you can work from the same desk every day. That's only something that you can get from a co-working space for $300 per month. And I'm sharing this mostly because when things get hard for solopreneurs, there's a little bit of like a grass is always greener effect, right? Where it's like, maybe I should stop doing this and get a full-time job. Full-time jobs have traditionally been more stable, right? But the truth is, I mean, I've been out of the game for nearly 10 years. This podcast turns 10 years old next month, and my full-time self-employment as an adult, I guess, is 9, right? It's 9 today, actually. 9 years ago today is when I started working for myself full-time, as this episode comes out, June 19th. So, when I read stories like this, it's really indicative of just how disconnected some company leadership is. And I'm not saying this is all companies. I've worked for some great people. I've worked for some terrible people. I've worked for people who, when I told them that a family member passed away, their first words were, "There's no bereavement for ants." Okay. "I'm sorry" would have been a better statement. I wasn't asking for bereavement. I was just informing you that there's going to be a day next week where I'm going to be at a funeral. So I'm not saying everything is bad, but Meta, one of the biggest companies in the United States at least, is firing a ton of people over, like, they have the resources, right? They're firing a ton of people, they're overworking their employees, and they're making it seem like a benefit is having your own desk. Like, so if you're working for yourself and you're thinking, this is bad, I need to find a full-time job, I would encourage you to take a step back. I need to do this every so often. Take a step back, look at what you're doing, where you're spending your time, and optimize for spending time on the right things. Not the things you necessarily feel like doing, but the thing that's going to move the needle. That's the kind of work that I do with solopreneurs all the time. Where are you wasting your time? How can we make it better? So I'll end this segment by saying I'm largely dubious of most tech companies. I understand most of us need to reconcile with our own tolerances. I happily use Apple. I use Google. I begrudgingly use Claude since no AI company is the good guy. And there are going to be people who are like, no, ChatGPT, OpenAI is the bad guy. Anthropic is the good guy. They are not. If you have learned anything over the past couple of months since they had that very self-serving press release about Claude Mythos, you should know that everything that they are doing is to increase the valuation of their IPO. Because if they were really scared of Claude Mythos, they would have never even remotely released it. And the government telling them that they can't release it is good for them too. So I begrudgingly use Claude because I think it's the best, but I don't like any of the AI companies. If Meta, and all of this is to say, that if Meta goes away tomorrow, I will not shed a single tear. I will feel bad for the people who lose their jobs, but I will not shed a single tear if Meta just falls off the planet. And I'll finally be rid of WhatsApp, which is an app I hate, but I use because that's what a lot of people I talk to prefer to use. So that's recommended reading, plus a little rant, a little nice Friday morning rant for you. All right, let's move on to recommended media, which is House of the Dragon Season 3. House of the Dragon Season 3 drops on Sunday, June 21st, and I cannot wait. I don't watch a lot of new shows. I still haven't finished Andor. And I tend towards lighter stuff. Comedies I've seen 100 times, like Friends, Scrubs, How I Met Your Mother, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Parks and Rec. Those comedies that add in some heartfelt moments, those are right in my wheelhouse. I don't like the heavy stuff most of the time. I just want to unwind at the end of the day. But man, am I excited for season 3 of this show. The 2-year release cycle kills me, right? So season 1 dropped in 2022. I was like a different person back then. And season 2 was a really slow burn. So it's felt like a very long 4 years of this show. But I am so excited for big battles, betrayals, and probably the soul-crushing death of my favorite character. I'm going to assume that. I've not read the source material. I've avoided spoilers, but given that it's Game of Thrones, I'm just going to assume whoever I like best is going to die. So that is my recommendation for the week as far as media goes. I will link to all the stories I mentioned, but also the trailer for season 3 in the description for this episode. Now, before I go, I do want to once again mention this is now next week as I record this. So June 25th is the first day. I'm giving a free workshop in partnership with eCamm. eCamm is the software I use to record this. And I am going to give you a full breakdown of how I produce this exact show, the Friday wrap up, in an hour or less using eCamm and some other tools. And so, like, this is a newsletter. I do write the newsletter. That takes me some time. Once I have the newsletter written, I go from recorded to published in less than an hour without using AI for any pre-production stuff or actual production stuff. eCamm Live, or eCamm, I should say, helps me do that. So if you want to sign up for this free workshop, head over to eCamm.com/Joe. That is my affiliate link, but there will be a link to my workshop there, which is totally free for anybody, not just people who use eCamm. So check it out. This is how I get ahead with my content. People say, how do you produce so much? How do you put out so many videos and podcast episodes and articles every week? eCamm is a very crucial part of that, but I'm going to give you a behind the scenes look at everything I do, the system I have for creating this content, and because it's a speaking event, how you can work with me to get a similar system set up. So again, that's over at eCamm.com/Joe. But that is it for this edition of the Friday wrap up. If you enjoyed this, consider joining my mailing list over at streamlined.fm/wrap. You will get an additional automation of the week, as well as regular emails on how to approach building systems that help you take time off worry-free. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time, I hope you find some space in your weekend.